Hi, Daddy. I just wanted to share with you my presentation from this week that I've spent hours upon end on assembling a 21-page paper and delivering a 20-minute um, seminar to my class on. So I just wanted to re-record it for you, and I really hope that you listen to it and understand how important it is for you to quit, and just know how much I love you, and this is all for you. This is not a school project. This is not a graduation requirement. This is completely personal, and I really want it to. I really hope it gets to you. So, without further ado, here you are.
Hi everybody, my name is Shannon Brady, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the effects that smoking has on cardiovascular disease. I will first be going over the problem with smoking and sharing some statistics from the Center for Disease Control to back it up. Next, I will go over some factors associated with smoking in the first hand. Then I will discuss some concerns with smoking in the second hand. I will follow with the takeaways from my research and discuss some ideas for future direction, and then open up the floor to your questions. Smoking is a big problem in the area of health, as you can imagine. It is among the most widespread and wicked habits in the entire world. Why? Because it is an addiction. It is incredibly easy to get addicted to smoking due to the nicotine contained in tobacco products. It travels quickly to the brain when it is inhaled and can create a feeling of relaxation or stress relief. Nicotine can also increase mood or heart rate. Lots of people like myself wonder why the United States has not made smoking illegal. But during my research, I learned that whether to smoke or not is a matter of personal choice, and prohibiting smoking is a direct infringement of the freedoms guaranteed to the citizens of the United States by both the Constitution as well as the Bill of Rights. Most of the smokers in our country understand the consequences this terrible habit leads to. They are reminded about the increasing threat of lung cancer, heart diseases, etc. nearly every single day. Thus, they are able to make informed choices about their health, and the government does not have a right to prohibit them to act according to their decision. Another point of concern associated with a ban on smoking is the employment of people who work in the tobacco industry. The harsher government policies on smoking are, the more unemployment they create. Additionally, in the event that the United States government decides to ban smoking, the American economy may become unstable for a significant amount of time, for tobacco production is a substantial sector in our economy. According to the CDC, nearly 1 in every 5 deaths in the United States are a result of smoking, thus making tobacco use the leading preventable cause of death. According to their data, more than 440,000 deaths in the United States each year are attributable to tobacco use, which translates into more than 6 million years of potential life lost each and every year. When looking at smoking from this viewpoint, the CDC classifies it as a nationwide suicide because it is a preventable choice and still takes away thousands of lives each and every year. That being said, both the CDC and the National Center of Health Statistics indicate that over the past 60 years, the percentage of smokers in the United States has been slowly declining. So if we take a look at this graph here, back in 1965, 43% of people admitted to smoking. And as you can see, this green line, indicates adults who have admitted to smoking, and it has drastically increased a significant amount. Like right now, in 2014, we're at 18.8% of people admitted to smoking. So it has come a long way since then. And they also realized in 1990 that there have been a lot of younger college-age students smoking. So they started to measure them too in 1990, and there's been a 10% increase in between 1990 and 1998. But since then, that's been the greatest increase. But since then, since more research has been revealed, since people are more aware of the risks they are taking if they choose to smoke, have been working. And there's been a decrease in the number of youth as well. They're at 16.7% as of 2013. And the Healthy People 2020 goal for youth is at 16%, and for adults it's at 12%. So hopefully they're right. So studies have shown an increased risk of having cardiovascular disease at all levels of cigarette smoking. And increased risks were evident even for people who smoked fewer than 5 cigarettes per day. Most recent data appeared to show an increase in cardiovascular disease risk with more cigarettes smoked per day, only up to about 25 cigarettes. The risk increased relatively little even with further increases in cigarette usage. So daily smoking, however, is declining, but light and intermittent smoking are increasing. This study took a deeper delve into the relationship between intermittent smoking and cardiovascular disease risks. The subjects in the study were males ages 18 and older, and as a result, the combined data of passive smoking, air pollution, and active light and heavy smoking indicated that low levels of tobacco exposure, as seen in light smoking, which is classified as 4 to 7 cigarettes a day, it has about 70% of the same effect as heavy smokers, which is classified as greater than or equal to 23 cigarettes per day. So you could be smoking 5 cigarettes a day, or you could be smoking 25 cigarettes a day, and your risk of developing a cardiovascular disease is pretty much the same. Another study I looked at focused on the duration of smoking. Variation in the number of cigarettes smoked per day and the products smoked during a lifetime of a smoker is often substantial. This study looks at the relationships between relatively low levels of active smoking and cardiovascular disease risks. The subject studied included 500 men ages 40 to 79 years old. This study was done in Italy using a survey method. Researchers then compared total low-density lipoprotein cholesterol levels as well as serum insulin levels. They found that a smaller rate, by about 15%, of cardiovascular disease cases among people who smoked 1 to 15 cigarettes per day than among non-smokers for ages 50 to 59. But then they also found a greater rate of cardiovascular disease cases among people who smoked 1 to 15 cigarettes per day than among non-smokers for the men ages 39 to 49. Now, typically we kind of assume that as our age increases, our risk of developing diseases increases. So I thought it was interesting. That there was a smaller rate of cardiovascular disease cases with men ages 50 to 59 years old, and there was a greater rate of cardiovascular disease cases for men ages 39 to 49. I just thought that was a very interesting result. So cigarettes are not the only thing that can be smoked. This research study focused on the usage of pipe and cigar smoking in comparison with cigarette smoking. Despite numerous theories indicating that pipe and cigar smoking are less hazardous to health than cigarette smoking, but this study proves that that theory is completely wrong. This study was comprised of 7,735 men ages 40 to 59 in England, Wales, and Scotland. There was a 78% response rate, and in the follow-up study, both primary and secondary pipe and cigar smokers showed significantly higher risk of major cardiovascular disease than never smokers, and there was little to no difference between the effects of primary and secondary pipe and cigar smoking in relation to cigarettes. All pipe and cigar smokers had a significant increased risk of smoking-related cancers and a significant increase by about 10% in cardiovascular and non-cardiovascular mortality. This study proves that all forms of tobacco smoking, not just cigarette smoking, should be regarded as hazardous to your health. So e-cigarettes are a little bit different. They are an electronic atomization cigarette that pose as a substitute for cigarettes and are marketed as an assistant with quitting smoking. However, this study I looked at gave some insight about the safety, efficacy, reduction and cessation, as well as the total impact on health. The subjects studied initially used one tobacco cigarette, as well as 3 different types of e-liquids. One contained 0 milligrams of nicotine and it was apple flavored. The next one contained 18 milligrams of nicotine and it was apple flavored. And then the third type contained 18 milligrams of nicotine and it was tobacco flavored. So they measured levels of several toxins and nicotine in the resulting aerosol. And they found low levels of formaldehyde, acetaldehyde, isoprene, acetic acid, acetone, propanol, propylene glycol, diacetyl, traces of apple oil, and nicotine released into your body as well as the air. So although most of the discussion of e-cigarettes among health authorities has focused on the product itself, its potential toxicity, and the use of e-cigarettes to help people quit smoking, the e-cigarette companies have been rapidly expanding using aggressive marketing messages, similar to the ones used to promote cigarettes back in the 1950s and 1960s. E-cigarette emissions are not merely harmless water vapor, as is frequently claimed, and can be a source of indoor air pollution. So introducing e-cigarettes into clean air environments may result in population harm if use of the product reinforces the act of smoking as socially acceptable or if the use undermines the benefits of smoke-free policies. And population harm is associated with harming those who live in that population, which brings us to secondhand smoking. Active cigarette smoking is a well-established major preventable risk factor for coronary heart disease. Many studies have reported that passive smoking is also associated with increased risk of coronary heart disease. This one examines the associations between a biomarker of overall passive exposure to tobacco smoke and the risk of coronary heart disease. The subjects studied included 4,729 men across 18 British towns. Although this study was modest in size with limited precision, the results suggest that the relative risk of coronary heart disease associated with high levels of passive exposure to smoke is greater than that estimated for partner smoking alone, even at the exposure of smoking 20 cigarettes a day or more. So, an innocent bystander inhaling the smoke, even though you are the one smoking, is in just as much, if not more, danger than a person who smokes 20 cigarettes or more. Crazy. So while there is an increasing support for restricting smoking in restaurant and bar patios, there is limited evidence on the effectiveness of this policy thus far because it is still rather new. This study examined the effect of smoke-free patio policy of restaurants and bars on adult secondhand smoke exposure. So this study was done in Canada, and it included over 89,743 subjects. Data was collected using the Canadian Tobacco Use Monitoring Survey from 2005 to 2012. Relative to pre-policy secondhand smoke exposure, regression results showed a reduction in the probability of secondhand smoke exposure of up to 25% in Alberta. Similarly, in Nova Scotia, the probability of secondhand smoke exposure declined by up to 21%. The analyses suggest that exposure to secondhand smoke on patios of bars and restaurants declined following the adoption of this smoke-free patio policy. This just goes to show how effective these laws can be. So the next study I looked at focused on living with a smoker. The purpose was to see if there was any sort of correlation between rural household smoking and secondhand smoke exposure to children living in those households. The children who responded were ages 12 and older, and as a result, households with children were more likely to be smoking households as opposed to households with children. Significant numbers of children continue to be exposed to secondhand smoke in their homes and suffering lifelong consequences on their physical health, academic performance, and smoking behavior in the future. So piggybacking off of living with a smoker a bit, I just wanted to briefly talk about how smoking has personally affected me. This is a picture of me and my dad after we ran the Bolt for the Heart 5K together on Thanksgiving morning 2 years ago in Indianapolis. And this was a race benefiting sudden cardiac arrest patients. And this was my dad's first 5K, and we were just really excited he made it in under an hour, even though he walked all of it. Nevertheless, he got his miles in early. But anyway, my dad started smoking when he was 17 years old and is now 54. And if my math is correct, that translates into over 37 years of smoking. He grew up with a house full of smokers, so there was no discouragement whatsoever there. Not much research was done on the dangers of smoking back then, and it was also the cool thing to do, if that's what you want to call it. And even if you watch old movies, the actors and actresses all have a cigarette in their hand or in their mouth, just like it's no big deal. So it's crazy how much, how it's gone a long way since then. So my dad was the youngest of 4, and he has lost both of his parents to cancer, and 2 of his 3 brothers, one being just 2 months ago from a heart attack, in which smoking was a huge factor in all of their deaths. My dad's only brother that is still living was the only one who never started and has been begging him to quit for years. He has cut down over the years, but he has not completely quit yet. And it terrifies me every single day because I don't want to see him go through what his dad went through, what his mom went through, what his oldest brother went through, and what his other brother went through. I mean, it's just not, I just can't bear to see him go through that, and it's hard enough losing them, but to lose my dad to this, I just want to do everything I possibly can to help him quit, and it just goes to show that smoking does not just affect the smoker's health, but it affects the people around them too. Like, this has emotionally torn me apart for years, and this is the first step I've taken into trying to get him to quit, and I'm hoping some way, somehow, he'll find a way to do just that. So I encourage every single person in this room, as you go on to become registered dietitians or any type of healthcare professional, that you discourage your patients from starting this terrible habit, because it is extremely hard to quit and it is extremely detrimental to your health. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's just so detrimental to your health. It's terrifying. So the takeaways from my research are that death is 100% preventable from smoking because it is your choice. Additionally, cardiovascular risks that are attributable to cigarette smoking increase with the number of cigarettes smoked as well as the length of time people are smoking. Finally, secondhand smoke exposure is just as, if not more, detrimental to non-smokers. So, just to keep that in mind. And then here's a graph that I found on the Duke website. It's from 2010, and it's just basically saying that the more cigarettes you smoke per day, the greater your risk of experiencing cardiovascular events. And it's a little bit scary. It's a very positive correlation. So it's just, it's really scary. So my thoughts for future direction include the utilization of media. We see these commercials on television all the time of people sharing their own personal stories and encouraging people to quit and not make the same mistakes they did. Which I think is help. It's a lot more helpful when you see people personally go through it. So I think that was a really good idea, and I think that we should keep up that usage of media. We also need to educate people on what smoking is and what it could do to you. Like, you can use imagery. Like, if you sit in a doctor's office, I'm sure there's pamphlets in there talking about the risks of smoking, and a picture of what your lungs are going to look like if you continue to smoke. There's a healthy lung that's like red, pinkish color, and then smoking the lungs of people who smoke are black, and the raspy voice. Like, it's just not attractive, and it's just not healthy. It's not healthy. And then, of course, there is always room for more research. It changes all the time, and it needs to be kept up with. I mean, we never stop learning. There's always going to be research out there. There's always going to be more information to be uncovered. And so just using more research to try and get people to quit is very important. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you very much.
I know the cake looks funny, Daddy, but I sure tried. Oh, with all that I've done wrong, I must have done something right to deserve